And the most interesting thing is this: when you begin voluntarily stepping into difficulty, you don't just become stronger, you begin to see who you really are. Every time you endure a little discomfort, every time you push past a psychological barrier, every time you choose not to run from fear, a part of your character reshapes itself. And at that moment, you realize something profound. All the practices of Stoicism, gratitude, boundaries, voluntary discomfort, are leading you toward one central point: character. Because in the end, you have to live with yourself. Not for a day, not for a week, but for your entire life. And the most important question is always, do you like the person you have to live with every day? That brings us to the sixth lesson: building a character you are proud to live with. One of the phrases I hear most often from my patients is, "I want to become someone I'm proud of." But ironically, most of the time they live as if they're trying to please everyone except themselves. We get pulled into external pressures, society's expectations, other people's judgment, fear of failure, the habit of wearing masks. But when everything becomes quiet, when you lie down before sleep, when you look in the mirror in the morning, it is just you and yourself. And you know what? The Stoics called that the most important meeting of your life. I once worked with a man named Michael. Successful, respected at work, father of 3, living a life many would envy. But when he walked into my therapy room, he said, "I feel disappointed in myself, even though I haven't done anything wrong." So I asked him, "Are you living according to your true values?" He fell silent, then said softly, "I'm not sure I even know what my values are anymore." You see? This is what happens to many people. Not because they're bad, not because they lack morality, but because they simply lose themselves in all the noise. Building character, in Stoicism, is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming someone you can respect. And that begins with your core values. I often ask patients to write down 3 to 5 values that matter most to them. Not values they think they should have. Not values that sound good. But the values they want to be remembered for when they're gone. Some choose honesty. Some choose kindness. Some choose courage. Some choose family. Some choose growth. Now you try. If your entire life could only be guided by 3 values, what would they be? Once you have your values, the next step is daily character training. I want you to imagine this. Each night before bed, you have a small conversation with yourself. Not long. Not heavy. Just 3 simple questions that, if answered honestly, can transform your life. Question number 1. What am I proud of today? Maybe you were patient instead of snapping. Maybe you told the truth when lying would have been easier. Maybe you treated someone kindly, or treated yourself kindly. Never dismiss the small wins. Character is built from those small wins. Question number 2. Which of my values did I betray today? This one is hard. It's the part we want to avoid. But there is no growth without honesty. Did you say something you shouldn't have said? Were you cowardly when courage was needed? Were you indifferent when care was needed? Not to shame yourself, but to acknowledge. This is where I need to shift. Question number 3. What will I correct tomorrow? Just one small thing. You don't need to become a new person overnight. Just move yourself 1% each day. Over time, that 1% becomes an entirely different human being. One of my patients did this exercise for 3 months. He told me that at first it was painful, because he had to face what he avoided. But eventually, it became a habit that made him feel lighter, more confident, more authentic. He said, "I don't feel like I have to pretend anymore. I'm finally becoming someone I respect. And that is the true goal of Stoicism. Not to make you perfect, but to help you become someone you want to live with. I often tell people who feel lost, live as if you're writing your own biography every day. Each action is a sentence. Each choice is a paragraph. And only you decide whether that book is worth reading. Character doesn't appear magically. It is built through thousands of small choices. Through moments no one sees. Through actions no one applauds. That is your real self. And the beautiful thing is this. A strong character becomes the foundation of peace. Because when you live according to your values, your soul no longer feels chaotic in your decisions. And once your character becomes strong, you begin to see that life is no longer just reactions, but intentional creation. And that intentionality leads to the next lesson. A lesson connecting character, gratitude, and strength, compassion and service. That is where we will go next. When you begin building a character you genuinely want to live with, you'll realize something important. The more you live according to your values, the less you're shaken by what happens outside of you. Judgment, expectations, comparison, the fear of losing things you once clung to, they all begin to lose their power. And this is the sign that you're ready to step into one of the strongest pillars of Stoic philosophy. Finding happiness through inner strength, instead of trying to control what is beyond your reach. I want you to recall the last time you felt anxious, angry, or powerless. Just one moment. Maybe when someone didn't reply to your message. When an opportunity slipped away. When someone misunderstood you. When work didn't go the way you hoped. Or when life suddenly moved in a direction you weren't prepared for. Now ask yourself, in that moment, what were you trying to control? A simple yet incredibly powerful truth is this. Most of our emotional pain comes from trying to control things that were never ours to control. The Stoics said this thousands of years ago. Modern psychology says the same today. And your own experience, if you look honestly, will confirm it. A patient of mine, Aaron, once said, "I'm exhausted from trying to make people see me accurately. I just want them to understand me." And I asked him, "Can you control another person's thoughts?" He lowered his head and said, "No. You see? We know we can't. Yet we still try. We try to make others think well of us. We try to force things to follow our plans. We try to get people to behave according to our expectations. We try to make life follow the script we wrote. We try to make things be the way they should be. And when reality does not obey, we hurt. Not because life is cruel, but because we placed our happiness in a place where happiness was never meant to come from. I want you to imagine this. You're rowing a small boat. The water, the wind, the waves, they're all beyond your control. But you still have the oars. You still choose your direction. You still adjust your attitude when the waves get rough. You still choose how you row, how fast you row, and with what mindset you row. And that alone allows you to travel farther than many people who sit in their boats refusing to pick up the oars, because they're too busy cursing at the wind. The Stoics always taught us that the most important skill is knowing what is the oar and what is the wind. What is within your control, and what must be let go. If you reverse the two, you will suffer your whole life. If you distinguish them clearly, you will find peace even in a storm. I want you to try a simple exercise that many of my clients practice. List 3 things you're trying to control this week. Anything at all. Someone not responding? The result of a project? Your partner's behavior? Pressure from your parents? A situation you wish were different? Write them down. Clearly. Then ask yourself, is this within my control, or outside it? If it's outside, let it go. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Letting go is not giving up. Letting go simply returns things to where they naturally belong. Letting go prevents you from wasting energy on battles you will always lose. Letting go saves strength for what is yours to influence. Your attitude, your actions, your effort, your character, your decisions. One client of mine spent years trying to change her husband. She became exhausted. Then one day she said, "I realized the only thing I can change is how I respond." And something remarkable happened. When she changed herself, the relationship shifted too. Not because she controlled someone else, but because she finally stopped fighting the wrong battle. You see? When you place your happiness in what you control, you're strong. When you place your happiness in what you don't control, you're fragile. And suffering becomes inevitable. One of Epictetus's quotes I repeat most often to my patients is, "Freedom begins the moment you differentiate what is yours from what is not." Modern psychology calls this the locus of control. People with strong inner power place their control internally. They act from values, not situations. They remain steady even when life shifts seasons. They don't try to play God. They simply do their part as a human being, well. And the moment you learn this, you discover something profound. Your happiness is no longer fragile. It no longer depends on what people do, say, or think. It no longer depends on perfect conditions. It no longer depends on the world outside. Happiness begins with you. With your choices. With the attitude you carry each morning. With the consistency you hold when life tests you. With picking up your oars, watching the waves, and choosing how to row. And the most beautiful part is, when you find happiness from within, you no longer fear losing it. And from that foundation of inner strength, you can move to an even deeper practice. The ability to live fully in the present moment. The very place where true happiness is waiting for you. And that is where we will go next. When you learn to place your power only in what you can control, rather than wasting your life on what was never yours, you begin to feel a strange lightness in your heart. But then something else becomes clearer. Even though you've let go of what's outside your reach, even though you've returned to your inner strength, your mind still wanders. Sometimes to tomorrow. Sometimes to last week. Sometimes to an unfinished argument. Sometimes to a future scenario that hasn't happened. And it's exactly the space between where you are standing and where your mind is running that creates anxiety. That's when you must return to the only home where real life actually happens, the present moment. Have you ever noticed how rarely we live in the moment we're actually in? The body is here, but the mind has already run off or been pulled backward. You're eating, but your mind is in tomorrow's meeting. You're driving, but your mind is in yesterday's argument. You're talking to someone you love, but you're thinking about what they should have done differently. The problem isn't that you're busy. The problem is that you're absent from your own life. The Stoics called this the scattering of the soul. And it is one of the biggest reasons so many people feel unhappy. Even when their life objectively isn't bad. I once worked with a woman named Sarah, a single mother working 2 jobs to support her child. During a session, she said, "I feel like my life is passing so fast. I'm always busy, but I don't seem to enjoy any of it." I asked her, "Do you remember what your breakfast tasted like this morning?" She was silent. "When you hugged your child last night, do you remember how that hug felt?" She shook her head. Not because she didn't love her life, but because she wasn't present in it. And that is what happens to so many of us. Our minds run. They run to places where we cannot live. The past, where we cannot return. And the future, where we cannot enter yet. Meanwhile, the present moment, The only place where we can breathe, feel, and experience is left behind. The Stoics kept repeating, everything you are looking for, peace, happiness, life itself, exists only in this moment. This isn't poetic philosophy. This is biology. Neuroscience shows that when we are truly present, the brain reduces activity in the anxiety regions and increases activity in the sensory regions, meaning we live deeper, calmer, more vividly. But how do we become present? This is the question many people understand conceptually, but don't know how to start. I want you to try something incredibly simple yet powerful, a technique I teach to many patients, many CEOs, many overwhelmed people. The pause moment. Just 3 breaths. No long meditation. No lotus position. No candles. No music. No ritual. Just stop. Really stop. And take 3 conscious breaths. Inhale. Feel yourself alive. Exhale. Release what you don't need to carry. Inhale. Return to your body. Exhale. Return to this moment. One of my patients once told me this 3-breath technique saved his marriage. He said, every time I'm about to snap at my wife, I take 3 breaths, and the fight disappears. I laughed and said, the fight didn't disappear. The part of you that wanted to fight disappeared. And once you master the pause, the next step is 5-sense awareness, a Stoic practice and also a modern therapeutic method, mindfulness-based. Do this a few times a day. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What do I feel on my skin? What am I smelling? What am I tasting? You don't analyze. You simply notice. And your mind slowly returns to where life is actually happening. Another thing I want you to try is single tasking, doing one thing at a time. When you eat, just eat. When you walk, just walk. When you listen, just listen. When you work, just work. You'll be amazed at how your quality of life doubles once you stop scattering yourself. We don't get tired from doing things. We get tired from doing too many things at once. Multitasking murders inner peace. Single tasking brings you back to yourself. I once asked a young patient, when you shower, can you feel the water on your skin? He said, no, I'm thinking while I shower. I said, then you're not showering, only your body is. Your mind is someplace else. Presence isn't stopping life. Presence is returning to actually live it. And the beautiful thing is, when you live each moment fully, you realize life has always been enough, even when it's not perfect. You worry less, regret less, fear less. You begin to notice how strangely beautiful small things are. I love the moment when one of my patients told me, I watched the sunset yesterday, and I realized I haven't seen a sunset in 5 years. Not because he wasn't busy, but because he wasn't present. And when you finally show up in your own life, you discover something deeper. It takes a great deal of quiet courage to live this way. To live awake. To live slower. To live present. To live truthfully. And that is where we will go next. And when you learn to be fully present in each moment, you'll realize something many people spend their entire lives avoiding. The present isn't always comfortable. When you're truly present, you don't just feel the pleasant things, the light, the breeze, the laughter. You also feel the difficult things, the anxiety rising in your chest, the anger heating your face, the tension in your shoulders, the hurt in your heart. And this is exactly when a crucial Stoic skill must appear. Emotional temperance, the ability to feel everything without letting any of it control you. I want you to imagine this. You're driving, and someone cuts you off. Anger flares instantly. Your chest heats up. Your jaw tightens. Your hands grip the steering wheel harder. Someone gives you a strange look. A flash of irritation rises. An email lands in your inbox late in the day. Your shoulders tense. Your mind snaps into frustration or exhaustion. Or a friend makes an insensitive comment. Your heart sinks, then shifts into defense. How many times has this happened? How many times has an emotion grabbed you before you even realized what was happening? Most people aren't overwhelmed by emotion because emotions are too strong. They're overwhelmed because they never create any space between themselves and the emotion. Emotion appears right pointing arrow, they react instantly. A subconscious reflex, an old pattern, no awareness, no choice. The Stoics called this the reactive loop. If you never break that loop, you'll live your entire life like a leaf, wherever the wind blows. The leaf goes. But here's the beautiful part. Sometimes all you need is one small pause to turn yourself from a leaf into a tree. I remember a story from a client named Daniel. He was kind-hearted but quick-tempered. Work stress made him explosive. One day he said, "I don't want to yell at my team, but it comes so fast, as if I have no control." And I told him, "No one controls the storm, but anyone can learn not to become the storm." Emotional temperance is not suppression. Suppression is pretending you don't feel anything, pushing pain down until it eventually explodes. Stoicism doesn't teach you to become a robot. It teaches you to feel, but not be carried away. One of the simplest yet most powerful tools is emotional rating. I often guide my patients like this. When a strong emotion arises, pause and ask, from 1 to 10, how intense is this right now? Is it a 9? A 7? A 5? You'll be amazed that simply naming the intensity creates distance between you and the emotion. You're no longer drowning inside it, you become the one observing it. This is modern psychology 100%, and also pure Stoic foundations. Jonathan, another client, once said, "Just labeling the emotion made me feel like I had a choice. The anger was still there, but it wasn't driving me anymore." You see? You don't need to eliminate emotion. You just need to put it in the right place, as information, not as a command. The next step is creating space before responding. This is the golden point of emotional temperance. You can use any of these. Count to 5. Take 3 slow breaths. Walk 1 small loop. Take 1 step back. Look out the window for 10 seconds. All of these do exactly one thing. They shift you from limbic reaction to prefrontal decision. From reflex right-pointing arrow to choice. I once asked a patient who was very emotionally reactive, "When you respond while your emotion is at a level 9, do you ever get a good outcome?" She laughed and said, "Never." Exactly. No one makes wise decisions when their heart is boiling. Another client, a single father, once said, "I always regret yelling at my kid. Once the anger passes, I feel awful." So I taught him just one technique. Step out of the room for 15 seconds before saying anything important. A month later, he said, "I've almost stopped yelling entirely, and strangely, my child listens better." You see? What you're controlling is not the emotion. It's the impulsive reaction. And when the impulse disappears, you become a better version of yourself. Stoicism teaches that for every emotion, there are 3 essential questions. What is this emotion trying to tell me? How strong is it? Do I want to respond from emotion, or from my values? If you can answer those 3 questions, you're already ahead of 90% of people. And the most important part is this. Emotional temperance isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming free. Because emotions are good at one thing: giving orders. But you are not the servant. You are the one who decides. When emotions have a place, but not the steering wheel, you begin living a life guided by consciousness, not by instinct. And once you master your emotions, you unlock another incredibly powerful Stoic practice, one that can immediately transform the tone of your entire life. Deep, practiced gratitude, Stoic style. And that is where we will go next. When you begin practicing emotional temperance, life becomes lighter in ways you never expected. You're no longer swept away by anger, worry, sadness, or impulsiveness. You develop the ability to step back, observe, and choose your response. And when you can choose your response, you begin choosing your life. That's when you realize an important truth. If you don't actively steer your own ship, life will automatically drag you along in the current of other people's expectations. And this is where you must enter one of the deepest pillars of Stoicism. Living with purpose, not passively. Let me begin with a simple but powerful question. Why did you wake up this morning? Not because of the alarm. Not because you had to go to work. Not because responsibility pulled you out of bed. But because of what that truly matters to you. Most people I meet, no matter how smart, capable, or strong, live in automatic mode. They wake up, work, answer emails, chase deadlines, take care of family, and collapse into exhaustion. They aren't living, they're reacting. They aren't walking their own path, they're being pushed by the demands of others. A young patient named Elijah once told me, "I don't know what I'm living for. I'm just trying not to fall behind." That's the reality for many people. Not because they lack goals, but because they lack purpose. You can have goals and still feel lost. But when you have purpose, everything becomes clear. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that a life without purpose is like a ship without a rudder. It still moves, but where it ends up depends on the waves. But when you have purpose, you become the one steering, not the wind. An older client of mine once said something I never forgot. I lived 50 years as if I had unlimited time. Then one day I realized I don't. And that changed me. He began simply. He wrote down one purpose sentence. Not a speech. Not a grand plan. Just one line. I asked him, why just one? He replied, my life is complicated enough. I need something simple to return to. I want you to do the same. Write down one short sentence. What do I live for? Who do I want to become? What is worth my time, energy, and heart? Your answer can be simple. I live to ease the suffering of others. I live to raise my children with kindness. I live to create something beautiful for the world. I live to become the best version of myself. I live to love and be loved wholeheartedly. Don't judge your answer. Don't try to make it poetic. Just let it be true. Once you have that sentence, you have a compass, a standard, a filter. One exercise I often give my patients is this. Use your purpose as a filter for every opportunity. If an opportunity, invitation, project, or relationship does not support your purpose, say no. Not out of resistance, but out of clarity. One of my patients, Isabel, was constantly exhausted because she always took on too much. Extra tasks, extra favors, extra responsibilities. She was always overwhelmed to death, but didn't know what she was running toward. When she defined her purpose, I live to nurture peace for myself and my family. She began evaluating everything with one question. Does this support my peace? And for the first time in years, she began to say no. No to unreasonable demands. No to expectations thrown onto her shoulders. No to carrying everything alone. She told me, it feels like I've been given my life back. I want you to understand this. Saying no to what isn't yours is saying yes to your life. The Stoics lived very little, but lived very deeply. No waste. No scattering. No running out of fear of missing out. They moved only when it aligned with purpose. You don't need to find a grand meaning right away. You just need enough clarity to say each morning, "Today, I live for this." And slowly, day by day, you stop drifting. You start walking. You gain direction. And your life begins to look like your life, not someone else's script. When you live with purpose, something remarkable happens. You fear failure less. You compare less. You lose your way less. Because you always have something to return to. And once you have purpose, inner strength, presence, and peace from within, you're ready to open the door to another essential Stoic practice. One that makes every moment, every person, and every choice more precious. Awareness of impermanence. And that is where we will go next.